Hello all. In this video, I am going to go over the general outline of what Google Colab looks like and show you some resources that you can look up and just show you the general outline of how things work when you are in this environment of Google Colab. And then in a second video after this, I will go over in detail the first part of what we're going to do together, training a model using Google Colab. All right, so what I'm showing you here is one of the original pages at Colab. So if you go to colab.google.com and then you look for a welcome to Colab link, that will take you here. This is an example of a Colab notebook. It's a fairly simple one, but it has a number of different options and links to additional materials that you might find useful, including examples from data science and machine learning and so forth. And there's additional links at the bottom of the page. What I want you to notice from the very start is that this is in fact a Colab notebook, and that means that we have some menu options up here. We have a share button over here, much like you would have with Google Docs or something like that. And on the left, we have a number of different items, table of contents. There's also a folder icon, which shows you files that are related to the notebook that you're currently looking at. What makes a notebook interesting to us and different from what we've done before is that when you write a program in a notebook, the notebook contains blocks of code and blocks of text. So if you look here, this first section right here, that's a text block. And I could theoretically edit it, although I don't think I have edit privileges on the main one here. This is another text block, and then here you see is a code block. If you look at that, that's Python code. You may not know exactly what it's going to do. I don't know exactly what it'll do if I were to run it, but it is a block of Python code, and there's a little run button off to the left. If I run it, then it will execute that code. I think in this case it's actually triggering Gemini, Google's main AI, to give us a response. And so in this case it prints the output from this code block in a little section at the bottom of the code block. So there are lots of things you can do with this formalism. It's a nice way to integrate, say, instructions and descriptions with code and with the results of that code. It gets used a lot in data science when you're doing Python. We are going to focus on a particular notebook. I'm going to provide you with this notebook. I'm still editing some bits of it, so it may look a little different when you see it, but it'll look fundamentally like this. You will make a copy of this notebook, and then you will make changes to and run it. So a few things that I wanted to note: when you are working, if you're working in a team, you can share this notebook. It doesn't work as well to have multiple people editing the notebook. It's not like a Google Doc where you can both be editing at the same time and it'll figure it out. It really does need one person who is mostly running the notebook at any given moment, but you can change who that person is. So if you run it today, someone else can run it another day. And you can also, anyone who is shared with the document can see the results that have been generated. So I'm going to move myself a little bit. Oh, nope, that's moving the wrong piece. All right, so I'm moving myself down just momentarily because I wanted to show you some things that are up in this upper right corner that are kind of important. The most important one here is this share button. The share button is just like sharing with Google Docs. You can list the other people who should have access and describe the access that they should have to it. When you are working on the in-class activity or the homework with a Colab notebook, make sure that you share it with any teammates you have and also with me and with our preceptors. There are some other elements here. Once I get this connected, they will show up again, and I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to connect, You should automatically be connected when you've started. I've just had this notebook open all day, and so it isn't quite sure whether it should be connected or not. Oops. I'm going to move myself back up to the top. And I'm going to move this up a little. There we go. Put everything back where it was. All right, so it has now connected. And you can see over here in this upper right hand corner, it says RAM and disk. So what's happening here? This notebook is actually running on Google's data centers out there in the cloud somewhere. There's a data center, it has lots of computers. Google is assigning one to you. And that computer comes with attached GPUs that we want to use. They are only going to give you a certain amount of time and a certain amount of memory and a certain amount of disk space for you to store data and things in. So there are limitations, but it's free. The base level is free. I believe there's a student upgrade to a pro level, which will give you more resources, and you're welcome to look into that, especially if you're thinking of doing anything like this for your project. If I take a look at the RAM and disk, I can actually, there's a drop-down menu here, I can actually say view resources, and it will show me a larger picture of what's being used. For the activity and our homework, this is not going to be an issue for you. It would only be an issue for potentially for a project where you might start to run out of the resources that they allocate to you. Over here on the left, I'd opened this so you can actually see this is the default that it comes with. You always have this sample data folder with a few sample data files in it. We're not going to use those. It's just something that Colab does automatically when you make a new when you have a connection to a new space. So I'm going to actually close this down too. So we're really just focusing in on the notebook itself. One last thing I will say is there are different run times. I am connected. You can check the runtime by if you select like change runtime type. You can see what your runtime is. I am going to change mine to T4 GPU. That's available to me in the free level. Most of these larger TPUs and GPUs are only available if you're paying. But the free TPUs are fine. And we're going to reconnect so that I can use the GPUs because I'm going to demonstrate training a deep learning model, and you really want the GPUs for that. So we'll let it finish out reconnecting while I talk about a few other things. As I said before, this style, you might see this style in something if you're taking like a intro to data science or intro to statistics where you're doing things in RStudio. I think they also use a notebook style. It's also something you might run across elsewhere. Sometimes people will do Python programming in something called a Jupyter notebook. With a normal Jupyter notebook, the code is actually running on your computer. You have to have Python installed on your computer, but this is different. You don't have to have anything installed on your computer. It's all running in the browser. What that means as a notebook is that, as I said before, we have two different kinds of blocks. So here, this top block is a text block. And you notice there's a plus code and a plus text button up here. You can add new blocks by clicking those. Or if you want to add a block adjacent next to one of the blocks you have, if I go up to the top edge, I can either add a code block or a text block above my current block. Or if I go to the bottom, I can do the same. I can add one below. You can also move them around. These arrows on the right are for moving the blocks up and down on the page. If this is a text block, I can edit this. If I double click on it, then it shows me a view with a simple text editor. You can just type text in here, but it also uses a markup system called Markdown. So I got a nice big header there because I put this hash mark at the beginning. That single hash mark gives you a top level heading, and then 2 hash marks would give me a level 2 heading, and so forth. I can also get things like bold and italics by putting stars around things, and there are some other examples as well. There's a whole page. If you go in and looked at the resources on that Welcome to Colab notebook, there's a page about Colab's version of Markdown that you could look up and see. So I can type things here, and it will preview it over on the right. And if I just click out of the box, then it stops editing and it keeps the current status of things. So there. Now it says hi there at the end. I'm going to go back in and take that out because that's kind of a weird thing to put in there. All right, this next section is a code block. We can intersperse code and text, or we can have a series of code blocks. There's no rules about how they're laid out. But the thing that you need to remember is that the code blocks, it's as if those are all chunks of a program in a code file that we've written. And we can run each code block separately, but they're all in the same space. So if I make a variable in one code block, it exists in other code blocks. Anything that I run after I run the one that defines the variable will know about that variable. You'll notice that the style here is very much writing scripts. We do write functions. We can and do sometimes write functions in these notebooks, but oftentimes we don't need to. We can just write a script, especially when we're doing machine learning. So yes, we have these text blocks and we can edit them as we wish. I'm not going to get into what's going on in the code block, but this is a code block. You can see that it looks like up the top of a Python program. We're doing import statements at the top. If I click the run button over here, it will run just this code block. And it will display any results from this in the space right below it. There is a run all button up here, but I find you don't usually want to use it because one of the things we do with these notebooks is we might have a section of code that we only need to run some of the time. And it's easy to just skip it and not run it when you're running one block at a time. If you click run all, it will run every code block in the file in order. So I'm not going to go through what the content of this is right now. I'll do that in a separate video, but just notice that there are multiple different text blocks, and then we have a code block. This one is showing you the output that happened last time I ran this. Sometimes you'll see we have one, two, several different code blocks all in a row that are all kind of working together on some task. And we can display images. There are two ways that you display images commonly in Colab. Here we're using a module called matplotlib, and we're making a plot that has a 5x5 grid of images that we're displaying. You don't have to learn matplotlib. You can just use the examples that were given and leave it at that. The other thing we could do is display images like we've been doing with OpenCV, but there are a couple of problems. Because this is running in the cloud, it does not have the kind of access to your computer that we would have if we were running code on your computer. So I already said we can't connect to the webcam with Colab. It just doesn't work. It can't access your camera because it's a program running on a server somewhere halfway around the world, potentially. It also cannot pop windows up on your computer. Does not have permission to do that. So we can't use things like cv2.imshow to see an image, or wait key to interact with it, or any of those kinds of things. So there is one little function that we might use if we ever want to display an image like OpenCV does. There is a special, this is like a patch, which means it's kind of a hacked up substitute that Colab has made so that people can use OpenCV and just not run into problems. So instead of doing cv2.imshow, which would run the imshow function that's part of OpenCV, there is a function that Google Colab provides called cv2_imshow, which just displays the image similar to what matplotlib does, displays it in the output section for a code block. It's a more simple thing, not as nice in some ways, but it does let us actually look at images. All right, this has been a very brief overview of the different parts of the Colab notebook. What we're going to do in the next one is to walk through the first section of the in-class activity that goes through the process of creating and training a model. So we have to get the data, we have to read it in, we have to process the data, then we have to train the model, and then we can see what the results might possibly be. That's a lot of pieces, and in the next video we'll go over that process. What you'll be doing for the homework is then repeating that process, copying and modifying the code, but with a different data set. I will see you very soon.